Very important interview that you're about to hear, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to apologize ahead of time for the sound quality because I literally had to do it sitting in my truck in the freezing cold. I had to go someplace where I had good reception in order to do this interview because the fellow I was interviewing was in Pakistan, and I had to jump through a few technical hoops in order to bring this thing about. So the sound quality is not the best, but you will be able to make out most of what he is saying, and I guarantee you it is stuff that you have not heard before, and we're all lucky to be able to listen to this. So anyway, sit back with your popcorn and your root beer or whatever it is that you happen to have brought to today's program, and be ready to be dazzled by today's guest who will be appearing here in just a moment. And as promised, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by a very special guest today. And before I bring him up, I want to just give you a little bit of background to make you aware as to just how important this individual is. He is coming to us all the way from Islamabad, Pakistan. He actually fought in the resistance against the Soviet Union over 20 years ago, ladies and gentlemen. Fought in the resistance for 6 years. Okay, so this is somebody, he's not what we would call an armchair warrior. He has been there and he has done that. He has carried weapons. He has seen the ugliness of war. And so that perspective, or that experience, gives him a unique perspective on what is going on in Pakistan today. His name is Zaid Hamid, and he is the owner-operator of the website Brasstacks.pk, which I'm going to spell out for you. It is BRASS T as in Tom ACKS.pk. He is an analyst. You will see him regularly giving commentary, very important commentary, I might add, on Press TV. I watched him. I watched a YouTube copy of an interview that he recently gave, and I found him to be not just extremely knowledgeable, but extremely fascinating to listen to. His work, ladies and gentlemen, is to make people understand why the United States, and really NATO for all intents and purposes, is in his part of the world, and by that I mean Afghanistan, Pakistan, and what the real issues are, okay? Because we hear all of the time about securing the realm for Israel, right? We hear all the time about, the fact that we have gone to war against Iraq and how Israel now wants us to go to war against Iran and Syria. But very rarely do we hear somebody who is able to bring this thing full circle, as my good friend Mike Piper likes to say, and to connect Afghanistan and Pakistan to that. So having said that, I want to go ahead and bring up my very special guest, and it is Zaid Hamid. Zaid, thank you very much for coming on the program. I know it's very late there in Pakistan where you are, and thank you from the bottom of my heart here for coming on.
Thank you, Glenn, and blessings to you from God. And I'm personally extremely happy to be with you and to share these moments together. We share a common cause, and as humans, we share a common destiny. And for the purpose of the cause that you are working, we truly respect and appreciate, and it's my honor and pleasure to be with you today. Thank you once again.
If I missed anything, Zaid, please tell me, who are you, where do you come from, and what are you doing? Why is your work so important that the rest of the world that wants to remain in peace and to maintain some modicum of prosperity, why do they need to listen to you and to your words?
Someone once said that nothing is more powerful than the idea whose time has come. Mm-hmm. You see, so I would define my work more as a work of an ideologue, a visionary, a thinker, a dreamer, mm-hmm. and as a secondary work as an analyst. Mm-hmm. You see, what happens is that the region in which I live in, this is in the eye of the storm for the 21st century. Mm-hmm. The ocean which connects our region, the Indian Ocean, is the ocean which is called the Ocean of Destiny. Whoever controls this Indian Ocean controls the greater Middle East and Eurasian region. Mm-hmm. Because in different moments of history, There would be different seas, different regions which will be contested, hotly contested by the powers of those times. There was time in Mediterranean, wars were fought in Mediterranean between the Western powers and the Muslims in the Ottoman Empire on North Africa. But in this century, it is the region which is being hotly contested is the Middle East, Greater Middle East, and the Eurasian region. And Pakistan is the center of gravity of this entire region of conflict. The new 21st century great game is being fought in the region where I live, where I come from. And the game has been going on for the last almost 30 years since the Soviet invasion into Afghanistan. The Soviet Empire wanted to come down to warm waters for the last 300 years, ever since the state of Moscow started to expand into Central Asia and Chechnya into Eastern Europe, and they started to slow down. In the 19th century, they captured the entire Central Asia. And in the later segment of last years of the 20th century, they finally rolled down into Afghanistan. All these stans of Central Asia, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Tataristan, these stan states were overrun by the Soviets, by the Russian Empire in the 19th century. And the last stan, Afghanistan, remained, they entered in 1979. And that's where my association with this war began too. And it was the withdrawal of the Soviet Union created a world which was so unique and dangerously polar and unipolar that we knew that if the 21st century is going to bring in more wars, not peace in this world. Let me give you a bit of background. You see, we have to go back slightly to see the larger picture. Whatever is happening in this region has got a history of at least 100 years. And it was the First World War. If you notice, it was the First World War which not just changed the politics of the world, but also the geography of it, especially within the Muslim lands, especially within the Greater Middle East. The Ottoman Empire was one Muslim empire before the First World War, but it was broken down and almost 50 Muslim countries were created. All the maps that you see in the Middle East today, they were drawn after the First World War. These countries, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Jordan, they never existed before the First World War. They were just the provinces of the Ottoman Empire. You see? So, not just that they divided the Muslim lands, they also polarized the world into two political blocs, communism and capitalism. And they also divided the world into two political ideologies, dictatorships and democracies. But if you see in reality, behind all this facade of democracy and dictatorship, capitalism and communism, they were the Western Zionist bankers. Both these political ideologies or these military or economic systems basically use the same international monetary institutions, paper currency, dollar, and the same institutions of World Bank and IMF. In reality, the law, but about 200 years ago, I think Rothschild had said this: give me the power to control the money supply of any nation, and I don't care who makes the laws.
Exactly, yes.
So they were the ones who were actually controlling the money supply. So after the First World War, you saw the world dividing into two camps. Muslim world was divided, and this Zionist state of Israel was sanctioned by the British Empire to the Lord Rothschild. But the state of Israel could not be created. For that, they needed another war. And after the Second World War, the state of Israel was created. But simultaneously, at the same time, the state of Pakistan was also created in 1947. So Pakistan and Israel were almost, this is amazing, because this is the most intense part of it. Pakistan and Israel almost came into existence at the same time. And these were the only two countries in the world, which still today, who were ideologically driven by religious motivations.
Yes.
Israel was created on the basis of hardcore Zionist ideology, and Pakistan was created on the basis of pristine principles of Islamic political, economic, social justice and jurisprudence. So Pakistan was an ideological Islamic state, and Israel was an ideological Zionist state, and that is why the founding fathers of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, immediately after the creation of Pakistan, had given a statement that Israel state have to fear Pakistan all times. They said, we are not scared of the Arabs, but we are threatened by the friends of the Arabs. And the Jewish state must never be oblivious of the threats and dangers which state of Pakistan poses to the state of Israel. You see, the Pakistan was geographically very far away from Israel. So what kind of threat would Pakistan pose to them? The point is that Pakistan symbolized the revival of the Islamic ideology, which has the potential to confront the modern Zionist system in the world today. Islam as an ideology was on the rise. The creation of Pakistan was a brilliant symbol that a new Islamic ideology to compete with capitalism and communism, to compete with democracies and dictatorships, that was emerging. And that's what, you see, even the WikiLeaks, the recent WikiLeaks that have just come out, despite the fact that these are Mossad operations, still few things have come out. For example, one reference to the Israeli defense minister has come out in which he says that Pakistan is the biggest nightmare for the Israelis. So, and if you know that Pakistan, as the nightmare for the Israelis would have it, rose to become an Islamic nuclear power also. You see? And this is the biggest nightmare which the Zionists could have in the world, a Muslim country with a powerful ideology and also having nuclear weapons. Now that's nightmare. So, after the Soviet adventures in 1992, and finally the communist regime fell, and the Soviet Union withdrew earlier in 1988, the Soviet Union as an empire disintegrated. And what happened was that the Americans at that time found a power vacuum that they started to expand in every region which were evacuated by the Soviet Union. You remember the time, it was in those times the Berlin Wall fell. It was in those times that Central Asia was liberated. It was during this time that so many Latvian states in the Brasstacks region started to declare independence. So it was during this time that it was decided by the Americans that in the Eastern Europe, or Central Europe, there was one large country called Yugoslavia. And that Yugoslavia was the last European country which was allied with the Soviets, with the Russians. So it was decided that Yugoslavia should be dismembered into smaller states. And that's what we call here in Pakistan the deployment of the Yugoslavia doctrine. These are not conspiracy theories I'm talking about. Everything I'm saying is verifiable, hard fact on ground, and I'm taking you from known to unknown. So,
no, you're doing fine.
Yugoslavia was a country. And what the Americans deployed against Yugoslavia was, it is called the fourth generation war. The first generation war was the First World War, where you fight in the trenches. The second generation war was the Second World War, where you fight a positional mobile warfare using aircraft and aircraft carriers and the mobile artillery and infantry. The third generation war was the nuclear Cold War, which you call the detente between the Americans and the Soviets on the nuclear exchange. But once the Soviet Union was taken out, the fourth you didn't have to fight high intensity wars, you didn't have to fight nuclear wars, so you went for a new doctrine called the fourth generation war. And the fourth generation war demanded that if you want to dismember a country like Yugoslavia, you bring in political chaos in it, you bring in economic anarchy in it, you support insurgent groups within various ethnic and religious groups, and then you side various powers so that the massive infighting and civil war takes place, and ultimately, when the time for coup de grace arrives, the European powers, NATO and the Americans move in some kind of a peace deal which basically dismembers the country. And this is exactly what you saw happen in Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was dismembered into 5-6 countries. It does not exist on the map anymore. Our children don't even hear this name Yugoslavia, because it was up till in the early 90s, not very long ago, it was the 5th largest army, the most powerful country in the world. What happened to it? So the point is, how